Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump attends the dignified transfer of 2 National Guard members killed in Syria. Actions he's taken since the attack. Beijing says China and Venezuela are strategic partners, showing its support for Caracas. It also says China opposes unilateral bullying. But under the country of the CCP, it has a record of doing exactly that. We discuss this with an analyst. Nick Reiner, the son of filmmaker Rob Reiner, makes his first court appearance in Los Angeles in connection with his parents' deaths. His arraignment has been delayed for early next year. The House of Representatives will vote on a health care plan. However, it does not include an extension of the expiring enhanced tax credits for Obamacare. How this impacts you? Former Special Counsel Jack Smith testifying today before the House Judiciary Committee. What we know about the closed-door meeting regarding his prosecutions of President Trump. Shen Yun Performing Arts is officially launching its 2026 global tour with Europe as its first stop.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Billionaire investor Ray Dalio announced today that he and his wife Barbara will help fund the Trump administration's so-called Trump accounts. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent touted the Children's Investment Initiative.
Ray has joined what we are calling the 50-State Challenge. The 50-State Challenge is a special initiative Treasury is launching today to rally the nation's philanthropists around a common cause. Through the 50-State Challenge, we are inviting every philanthropist in every state across the country to partner with us in building generational wealth for America's children through Trump accounts. There are 4 ways Trump accounts will be funded. First, through an initial $1,000 seed from the government. Second, through the donations of parents, friends, and employers. Third, through the generous donations of wealthy Americans and philanthropic organizations. And fourth, through donations from state governments.
The Dalio investment amounts to a $250 contribution per child for approximately 300,000 children in their home state of Connecticut. Ray Dalio took to X posting, quote, "By providing children with savings accounts that compound over time, we are providing them with early insights into financial literacy and a path towards financial independence." Entrepreneur Michael Dell and his wife Susan have joined the effort as well with a $6.25 billion pledge backing the initiative. All the U.S. children under 18 can have a Trump account. Former Special Counsel Jack Smith is testifying today on Capitol Hill. The House Judiciary Committee is questioning the former special counsel behind closed doors. The committee said earlier the deposition relates to his 2 prosecutions of President Trump for his alleged mishandling of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago resort and his challenging of the 2020 presidential election results. Smith ultimately dropped both cases after Trump won the 2024 election. In his opening statement, obtained in part by the Associated Press, Smith told lawmakers that investigators developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt in the election case, and that they had accrued powerful evidence in the classified documents case. Ahead of the hearing, Smith's lawyer told reporters that his client conducted the investigations based on the facts and based on the law and nothing more. Trump told reporters at the White House that he supported the idea of an open hearing, saying, quote, "I'd rather see him testify publicly. There's no way he can answer the questions." Smith has continually denied his work was politically motivated and has said he is willing to testify publicly. And meanwhile, the FCC is facing scrutiny for pressuring broadcasters to take ABC late-night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel off the air in September. Here's FCC Chair Brendan Carr in an exchange with Senator Amy Klobuchar of the Commerce Committee today.
But after Jimmy Kimmel's monologue, you went on a podcast and suggested that ABC should take Kimmel off the air, saying, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Those were your words. Do you think it is appropriate to use your position to threaten companies that broadcast political satire?
I think any licensee that operates on the public airwaves has a responsibility to comply with the public interest standard, and that's been the case for decades.
I asked if you think it's appropriate for you to use your position to threaten companies. And this incident with Kimmel wasn't an isolated event. You've launched investigations into every major broadcast network except Fox. Is that correct?
I don't know if that's true or not. We do have investigations going on NPR and PBS. We have a number of investigations that are ongoing. I think if you step back over the years, I think the FCC has walked away from enforcing the public interest standard, and I don't think that's a good thing.
Now, back in September, Kimmel's show stirred controversy over comments he made about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Carr warned that local broadcasters who aired Kimmel could face fines or loss of licenses. ABC briefly suspended Kimmel's show following the warning. Senate Commerce Committee Chairman Ted Cruz criticized the FCC, calling it unconstitutional coercion that chills protected speech. Last month, Carr also said the FCC was opening a review of agreements between national networks and local broadcast stations. This was after President Trump criticized ABC. Carr and both FCC commissioners testified before the oversight hearing. Carr said his agency is working to drive down prices for consumers, restoring U.S. leadership in wireless, and countering national security threats. The Senate has passed the defense spending bill for fiscal year 2026. The vote was 77-20. The National Defense Authorization Act approves a record $900.6 billion for the Department of War. That's $8 billion more than what President Trump requested earlier this year. The bill is over 3,000 pages long. It covers a pay raise for troops, military assistance to Ukraine, and Pentagon's weapons programs. The House passed the bill with bipartisan support last week. The bill will now head to President Trump's desk for signing. Turning to Venezuela's coast, President Trump has ordered a naval blockade targeting sanctioned oil shipments. NTD's Daniel Monahan reports on that, plus updates on the National Guard members killed in Syria and a special presidential address to the nation.
President Trump announced the move yesterday on Truth Social, writing that Venezuela is now surrounded by what he called the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. Trump said the pressure will increase until what he described as stolen U.S. oil, land, and assets are returned. Trump has designated Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro's regime a foreign terrorist organization, accusing it of using stolen oil revenues to fund drug trafficking, human trafficking, murder, and kidnapping. Maduro denounced the American advances yesterday, saying imperialism and the fascist right want to colonize Venezuela to take over its wealth of oil, gas, gold, among other minerals. Congressman Joaquin Castro called Trump's blockade an act of war. He said the House will vote tomorrow on a resolution pushing for an end to hostilities with Venezuela. The Maduro regime previously described the United States' recent seizing of a tanker filled with Venezuelan crude oil as international piracy. The White House said last week the U.S. was justified in taking the vessel.
We're not going to stand by and watch sanctioned vessels sail the seas with black market oil, the proceeds of which will fuel narco-terrorism of rogue and illegitimate regimes around the world.
Tensions are also extending to the skies. The FAA has issued an advisory warning airlines of deteriorating security conditions in Venezuelan airspace, citing heightened military activity.
The warning runs through February 19th, 2026. And Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said yesterday that the Pentagon will release to select lawmakers the full video of a September strike on a drug trafficking boat that killed survivors of an initial strike. Democrats have criticized the military strikes, especially the second one on September 2nd. They say it targeted shipwrecked survivors who otherwise would not have been able to conduct further operations. President Trump will also address the nation from the White House today.
He's going to talk a lot about the accomplishments over the past 11 months, all that he's done to bring our country back to greatness, and all he continues to plan to do to continue delivering for the American people over the next 3 years.
The president's remarks are scheduled for 9 p.m. Eastern and will be broadcast live on the White House's social media channels. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
President Trump designated Nicolas Maduro's regime as a foreign terrorist organization and ordered a blockade of oil tankers entering or leaving Venezuela. Joining us to discuss is Armen Kurdian, retired U.S. Navy captain and foreign policy and national security analyst. So Armen, good afternoon. Can I just ask you what kind of impact this will have on Venezuela's oil reserves, and what's the overall effect going to be on the country?
Good afternoon, Don. Are you talking about the blockade here?
The blockade, that's correct.
Okay. So there's quite a few bit to unpack here. The terminology of blockade is essentially used to when you stop all ships going into and out of a country, whether it's dry cargo, wet cargo, oil, fishing trawlers, everything. So that's not a terminology I would use, because the term blockade actually under international law is generally recognized as an act of war. This is not that. This is essentially a call that says any sanctioned vessel traveling into and out of Venezuela will be intercepted, perhaps boarded and seized. So it's a bit of a distinction right there, and I think how this was communicated was not helpful. Now the question is going to be whether Venezuela is going to start escorting some of these ships outside of its waters. Their navy is not much to speak of, so they wouldn't be able to do it on a regular basis. If they did, then the amount of oil they'd be able to transport outside of the country or back into the country, or other kind of products, would be severely limited. A lot of these ships that are carrying this sanctioned oil are already sanctioned under international law. They're hard to insure. They're stateless in a lot of ways, and a lot of times they're not in the best conditions. So taking them off of the high seas is not necessarily a bad thing.
All right, understood. Can we also talk about labeling the regime as a terrorist organization? Does that provide any new tools for the administration?
You can label them as a terrorist organization, and yes, it does provide additional tools for the U.S. to handle that, in terms of perhaps a precursor to military strikes or other kinds of targeted attacks. I don't know whether necessarily labeling his government as a foreign terrorist organization it would really stand to scrutiny, and I think it's a little bit of an overreach. I think a lot of the interception, the work that's being done, taking out the little drug boats, and the seizing of these tankers, and additional sanctions on the country is probably necessary. Trump has talked about, this country stole a lot of American oil and our assets. He's going back and referring to, back in the 70s and also 2007, when the regimes basically nationalized a lot of U.S. assets, U.S. oil refineries in the country. The claims are anywhere from $10 billion to $60 billion of U.S. assets that were that basically seized or nationalized by various regimes within Venezuela. The previous one being Hugo Chavez. So there is validity to that claim that Venezuela has taken some of our assets, and it might be a little bit stretch to say that it's a terror organization, but we certainly know that they are receiving under the table drug money, allowing a lot of these drugs going through Colombia to pass through their country into the United States and into Europe and the rest of the world.
Okay, on this subject, China is actually showing its support for Venezuela. It's saying that China and Venezuela are strategic partners. This is according to a Chinese Foreign Ministry statement. And just pointing it out that it's reported China is Venezuela's biggest oil buyer. So what is China's ultimate interest in this situation through this support?
Well, just like the Soviet Union tried back in the 1980s in Nicaragua and other parts of South America, China is trying to keep a foothold in the Western Hemisphere. And the fact that Venezuela and the U.S. are not getting along means that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and that's what China is trying to do right now. China needs oil, so they're going to be buying sanctioned oil at a discount. The question is whether the president will intercept any vessels carrying sanctioned oil from Venezuela to China. That remains to be seen. Certainly, China has been financing Iran's war with support of the Houthi rebels and other proxies in the Middle East. through buying the sanctioned Iranian oil. So you see a lot of these countries that are just on the other side of the line, the ones that we talk about normally, Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, and you can maybe now add Venezuela to that mix, simply aligned because they don't have any ideological similarities, but they're all aligned because they don't like the United States.
You know what I find sort of hypocritical or ironic? According to that statement from China's foreign ministry, it also said that China opposes unilateral bullying. But under the country, but the country under the CCP has a record of doing exactly that. Just think South China Sea or its actions towards Taiwan. So what do you think about that? Your comments there?
Oh, absolutely. Look what they've done with the Spratly Islands going in with a lot of other countries who have claims to that territory. They've definitely tried to say the South China Sea belongs to them, which it does not. The U.S. only recognizes that 12 nautical mile limit. And to the U.S.'s perhaps discredit, I don't think we've necessarily stood as strongly with a lot of those countries in China's immediate regional sphere of influence as strongly as we should have. Now, obviously, those countries are over there. They got to live with China in their backyard, so they don't want to tick the Chinese off that much. But the fact that the U.S. hasn't stood up for them, that the U.S., the Obama administration, basically allowed China to militarize the Spratly Islands, which have a lot of natural resources, build artificial reefs and artificial runways and military bases in that area. He goes to say, well, is the U.S. going to be a reliable partner or a reliable ally in that part of the world? So in a lot of ways, we kind of have ourselves to blame for giving China a little bit more of a free hand or being less vocal, or less, not vocal, but less active in terms of our criticism and taking those actions to try to counter some of that, counterbalance some of their actions there.
Okay, Armin, there's another thing on my mind. I wanted to get your thoughts as well on the National Guard soldiers killed in Syria. President Trump said he's going to meet the plane carrying the bodies. The U.S. Central Command said this was a lone ISIS terrorist. How should we interpret that? I mean, what is ISIS's current operational capabilities in Syria?
So ISIS is starting to recoup itself a little bit. They're nowhere near where they were, but there's still territory, parts of Syria and parts of Iraq where they are in control, and the government does not have control. I wouldn't necessarily call the new Syrian government as a strong U.S. ally, but they're certainly a lot less antipathetic towards the United States than the Assad regime. So they want to bring Syria back into the fold of the international community. I believe that Trump could have a massive foreign policy success if he's able to repeat with Syria, the Camp David Accord with Egypt in '78, and then the peace treaty that Israel had with Jordan in 1994. Because Syria is the one country right there on the border of Israel where they don't have a signed peace treaty following the wars in 1967 and 1973. Now, in terms of ISIS, I'm sure the Syrian government wants us there to help them, combat ISIS, keep intelligence on them, keep identifying what they're actually doing. On the other side of that coin, those troops, there's only 1,000 there. They're not really an offensive force. There's not much that they can do. So if there is any counter attacks, it would have to be from airstrikes or perhaps drone strikes as well, kinds of things. This what did sound like a lone wolf attack, an insider attack, which is very hard to defend from. And we saw a lot of those happen in Iraq. A 2-star Air Force general was killed in an insider attack as well. So I think that there does need to be a little bit of a closer scrutiny to determine whether those troops in that part of the world are serving a valid function, if they are providing requisite intelligence and supporting the Syrian regime and countering ISIS at the same time. But if that's true, then we need the European allies and other countries involved there as well.
Well, all right, Armin, that's all I had in mind today. Really great to talk to you, as always. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Don. Have a great day.
Nick Reiner, the son of filmmaker Rob Reiner, makes his first court appearance in Los Angeles in connection with his parents' deaths. His arraignment has been delayed for early next year. More news after this break.
Don't miss our special coverage of Turning Point's biggest event of the year, America Fest 2025.
This is the greatest nation on earth.
Thousands of students expected to attend the 4-day event, joined by some of the most influential voices in the conservative movement, all to honor Charlie Kirk and the principles he stood for. Watch our special coverage of the convention and our on-the-ground editions of NTD Evening News with Tiffany Meyer at 6 p.m. Eastern and Capitol Report with Steve Lance at 7. Turning Point USA, America Fest 2025, this Thursday through Sunday on NTD.
A performance that truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
This is Pho-licious. Now, what is pho? It's an authentic Vietnamese noodle dish. Pho-licious chicken pho brings the comforting, aromatic flavors of Vietnam to your bowl. And Mama Thu's signature spice blend. Well, this chicken pho is as close to homemade as it gets without the wait. Some cubed chicken, a little lime, and then the magic moment. See you soon, my friends.
Pho-licious is now available at your local Walmart or walmart.com.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
The manhunt intensifies for the Brown University shooter. Authorities shared a new video timeline and a clearer image of the suspect. Yet, investigators did not indicate they had moved any closer to knowing the shooter's identity. Here's more.
As the manhunt for the gunman who killed 2 Brown University students stretched past 3 days, authorities once again asked members of the public for help to identify the suspect. In a news conference Tuesday, officials played several video clips taken from neighborhood cameras.
In this video that you just saw behind me, it all comes from the residential block of Waterman Avenue, Power, Ives, and Hope Street. And it's those residential areas that we're asking the public to look. If you have any camera systems or any Teslas, like I mentioned, that you look at that footage and that you can reach out to us and please provide us anything that you have.
Perez said the suspected gunman was in the area as early as 10:30 a.m. on Saturday, more than 5 hours before the attack, and that he was likely casing the scene.
There is no information that...
Officials said they were confident the person in the video is the gunman. but added they have zero evidence as to the motive for the shooting. Authorities initially detained another person of interest, a man in his 20s, early on Sunday, but they eventually released him after concluding that he was not involved. The news that there was no suspect in custody brought fresh anxiety to nearby residents, who have opened their doors to police officers seeking camera footage that might have captured the shooter. On Tuesday, many anxious students were departing the campus, including Partha Gupta.
I don't think anyone feels safe right now, given the fact that the person is still on the loose.
Brown said it had implemented enhanced security measures since the shooting, including doubling the University Department of Public Safety's staffing and restricting entry to campus buildings. It is one of the oldest and most prestigious universities in the United States.
Nick Reiner, the son of filmmaker Rob Reiner, appeared in court today for the first time since being accused of killing his parents. NTD's Christina Corona is live outside the courthouse. Christina, good to see you. What's the latest on his arraignment?
Good to see you, Don. Yes, so we're outside the Los Angeles Superior Courthouse where Nick Reiner made his first court appearance since being accused of killing his parents, Rob and Michelle Reiner. Now, his attorney, Alan Jackson, announced that his arraignment will be pushed back to early next year, citing there are very complex and serious issues associated with his case. Let's take a look.
We ask that during this process, you allow the system to move forward in the way that it was designed to move forward, not with a rush to judgment, not with jumping to conclusions, but with restraint and with dignity and with the respect that this system and this process deserves and that the family deserves. So with that, we are set for January 7th for an arraignment.
Now, this comes after his attorney announced that Nick Reiner wasn't yet medically cleared to attend court yesterday. Back to you, Don.
Also, Christina, I'm wondering if you can tell us what charges is he facing?
Yes, so yesterday, District Attorney Nathan Hochman announced that former charges were filed against Nick Reiner yesterday. Let's take a look.
These charges will be 2 counts of first-degree murder with the special circumstance of multiple murders. He also faces a special allegation that he personally used a dangerous and deadly weapon, that being a knife. These charges carry a maximum sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty.
Now, officials say that cases involving family members are really difficult to prosecute. Let's take a look.
Now, prosecuting these cases involving family members are some of the most challenging and most heart-wrenching cases that this office faces because of the intimate and often brutal nature of the crimes involved. Rob Reiner was a brilliant actor and director, an iconic force in our entertainment industry for decades.
Now, authorities say that Nick was living at home during the murders, but was not present when officers arrived. Back to you, Don.
Just one more thing here, and I'll let you go, Christina. Are there any new details that have come out about the events leading up to the murders?
Yes, so as we reported, the Reiners attended a holiday party on Saturday at Conan O'Brien's house where Nick Reiner and his father, Rob Reiner, apparently got into a heated argument. Then, hours later, Nick Reiner checked into a Santa Monica hotel around 4 a.m. on Sunday. And by Sunday afternoon is when their daughter, Romy, unfortunately, she found her parents' bodies. And Nick Reiner was later arrested Sunday night near the USC area. Now, hotel staff have told investigators that in Reiner's room, they found the bathtub full of blood and blood on his mattress. Nick Reiner is currently being held at the Twin Towers jail facility in downtown Los Angeles. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Christina, thank you. Australian authorities have charged an accused gunman in the Bondi Beach massacre with 15 counts of murder and dozens of other offenses. It comes as funerals begin today for the victims of the anti-Semitic attack. Here are the details.
The 24-year-old accused in the terror attack on a Jewish crowd, Naveed Akram, has been formally charged after waking from a coma. Police say he faces 59 counts, including committing a terrorist act, 15 murders, 40 counts of wounding with intent to murder, and charges related to firearms, extremist symbols, and explosives.
Currently awaiting his medical condition to be appropriate for us to do that. It's important that he has appropriate cognitive ability at the time. When you're on medication, we would argue for his fairness, we need to make sure that he's able to understand exactly what's happening.
Police shot him and his father, Sajid Akram, at the scene where his father died. Australia's Federal Police Commissioner said authorities believe the shooting was a terrorist attack inspired by Islamic State. Meanwhile, hundreds of mourners gathered today for the first funeral of a victim, honoring a rabbi who organized the Hanukkah event where the attack unfolded.
After what happened, my biggest regret was, apart from, obviously, from the obvious, but from the things that I could have done more, is to tell Ellie more often how much we love him, how much I love him.
Those who knew him describe Rabbi Eli as a pillar of the community.
He just wanted to bring light to this community. He was proudly Jewish. He just had a 5th child just weeks ago, and now his wife is a widow.
Australian leaders and the Jewish community say the Hanukkah celebration will return to Bondi Beach in defiance of the attackers' intentions.
Eli lived and breathed this idea. We can never ever allow them not only to succeed, but any time that they try something, will become greater and stronger.
A Sydney shop owner is being hailed as a hero for disarming one of the gunmen, while a couple and another man who were killed confronting the attackers are also being remembered for trying to save others. Prime Minister Albanese identified the couple as Boris and Sophia Gurman. According to the Sydney Morning Herald, the couple were Russian Jewish. Boris was a retired mechanic, and Sophia worked for Australia Post. Albanese spoke to the media today, honoring the couple and another man who was killed while trying to stop the bloodshed.
Well, I pay tribute to Boris and Sophia Gurman, to Reuben Morrison, who threw bricks and took action to try and stop this occurring, also murdered by these terrorists. These are Australian heroes.
There has been reports in...
As the investigations unfold, Australia faces a political reckoning about anti-Semitism and whether police protections for Jews are enough for the threats they face.
The House of Representatives will vote on a health care plan that does not include an extension of the expiring enhanced tax credits for Obamacare. How this impacts you. More news after this break.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. And in our family, we're used to getting involved, and I encourage you to do the same, especially when it comes to caring for your loved ones. When I think about Alzheimer's and the impact it had on my family, I recognize that losing a race isn't such a bad day after all. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Where did that time go? I don't know how I got here.
the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Got a new house. A place that I call home.
If you love them enough to crawl into a play place to get them to come down, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Several House Republicans broke with the House Speaker on Affordable Care Act subsidies and signed onto a Democratic petition. House Democrats needed 218 signatures on their discharge petition to force a vote. All House Democrats signed, along with 3 representatives from Pennsylvania: Brian Fitzpatrick, Robert Bresnahan, and Ryan McKenzie, and New York Representative Mike Lawler. Their signatures forced a vote on a 3-year extension of Obamacare subsidies that are set to expire for millions at the end of the year. The ACA funding bill is expected to expire since the House will unlikely vote on the extension until the second week of January. And this is due to timing on petitions like this and the upcoming 2-week holiday recess. The House of Representatives will vote on a health care plan that does not include an extension of the expiring enhanced tax credits for Obamacare. Joining us to discuss is Gerard Filitti, Senior Counsel at the Lawfare Project and political strategist. So Gerard, always great to see you. So a Kaiser Family Foundation October poll found that 8 in 10, nearly, Americans want to renew the tax credits. But, there's been a big concern about fraud on the Republican side. So your thoughts on the vote of a health care plan that does not include an extension?
I think the problem here is that you have 2 competing bills, one that wants to keep things going as they are without addressing the fraud and without providing a bridge or a transition to alternate ways to pay for healthcare, and the other one, which is what the House is putting out on its own, the House Republican Conference, is something that just basically cancels the credit. There has been no real compromise between Republicans and Democrats, but the problem is indeed that no one has addressed the fraud and abuse, which, as we have seen, is significant in government and is costing people the ability to actually get the care that they need, because this is making healthcare unaffordable and insurance premiums even higher.
So Gerard, I just want to point out some of the fraud that's happening here. Now, according to a Government Accountability Office report, it said there are gaps in identity verification that can lead to abuse. So for example, the office says it created dozens of fake identities to apply for subsidized healthcare, and all but one were actually successfully enrolled. So in your view, the problems that we're seeing here, are they systemic and fundamental, or is it more surface level and easily fixed?
The problems that we're seeing are very much systemic. It's a system that adds together a weak verification system with automatic eligibility. And what that means is that it's an open invitation to fraud and abuse. If all you have to do is provide a social security number, which may not even be accurate or yours, and you put down on the form that you are the right age or that you don't make enough money, you're automatically enrolled in a system. There is very little checking, very few checks and balances, very few audits that are conducted. And in most cases, you don't have to prove your identity beyond the number that you put down on a piece of paper. So this is an open invitation to fraud and abuse, and this is what we've seen happen in numerous states across the country, including in Minnesota.
So you said earlier there's competing ideas in Congress. I'm wondering, is it possible to continue these subsidies, but with reforms that reduces fraud significantly?
I think that is absolutely a possibility. The problem is that the Democrats have not wanted to budge from that position. When you're looking at verification or you're looking at increased audits, that becomes politically difficult, especially for Democrats to sell to their supporters. These are measures that usually Democrats do not favor. They want to make it easier for people to sign up, not harder. So this is something that prevents them from coming to meet in the middle and have that extension with increased checks, with increased accountability for fraud and abuse. So really, it's on the Democrats to sell to their constituents the need to have these verifications and audits and root out abuse in order to maintain the credits.
And you also pointed out the rising cost, right? What's driving up the cost? Is it fraud that's driving up the cost in Obamacare premiums?
Well, fraud certainly plays a large role. Every dollar that is being abused, that is being fraudulently wasted, is a dollar that's not going towards patient care. It's money that's going somewhere else. So those dollars are not available and are causing health costs to increase. But we also have, I think, a problem, a more systemic problem as well, with the inequity of the government and individuals to negotiate with healthcare providers on costs. We often see costs at an exorbitant, everyone is aware of this. You go to a hospital and you're charged $20 for an aspirin that would cost 5 cents if you went to a pharmacy. That's also part of the problem that no one is really addressing in these bills.
Your thoughts on having the government funds go directly to consumers or patients? What do you think about this idea?
Well, I think that's certainly an idea that has merit. It's something that's been kicked around for many, many years. Look, in retirement, when the United States government started allowing for people to contribute to their own retirement accounts, their own 401c, for their own 501c. I apologize. It's one of those days. When the government started giving tax benefits to Americans contributing to their retirement accounts, we saw a massive increase in savings that people were putting aside for their own retirements. They were no longer relying on the federal government for the brunt of their retirement accounts. We need a similar system in healthcare. If people can invest in their own health accounts, then that is a disincentive for them to spend money elsewhere, and it allows them to save for their expenses without becoming a burden on other taxpayers. That's the benefit of having individual health accounts.
Okay, Gerard, if you could you put this into perspective for us? Can you compare government-run programs like Obamacare to private health insurance plans?
Government-run programs have one benefit. It makes it easy for people to sign up because it's basically universal. Anyone can sign up. All you need is your social security number. The problem with these government plans is that in order to provide healthcare for everyone, you are necessarily diminishing the level of care that everyone is getting. You are not paying for the higher end or specialized care. You are providing a bare minimum for everyone to have equally. And that creates disparity in the market as well. So when you're looking at private plans, you're looking at choice. You're looking at people who have specialized or different needs being able to choose a plan that's tailored for their needs. When you're looking at Obamacare, when you're looking at Affordable Care Act, you are basically stuck in a position where you have to take what you're given. And that may not be enough for your needs, and you may still end up paying a fortune out of pocket for costs.
Okay, just one last thing, Gerard. You brought up choice. Is that the fundamental issue here? If you can just point to one thing that's causing fraud in these government programs, what would it be?
Well, if you're looking at the fraud in these programs, it's people taking advantage of the system. Much like with accident schemes where someone claims that they were hit and they have these medical expenses that were never incurred, it's the same type of idea where you are providing medical insurance to people who don't qualify for it, people who don't even exist, and that is creating the incentive for them to spend that money to go to fake practitioners or practitioners who are in on the scheme and bill for medical care that's never provided. So in many ways, this operates as a fraud on the system, and it takes money out of the system and puts it into people's pockets.
Okay, Gerard, good to speak with you. Thank you very much for your time.
A pleasure. Thank you as always.
The Chinese Communist Party continues its trend of abusing the U.S. legal system as part of a so-called lawfare strategy to advance their interests. This time, the CCP is targeting Senator Eric Schmidt in a $50 billion lawsuit.
Yeah, we're getting it translated as we speak, but we do know it's 50 billion, and you know me as a troublemaker, but it's totally ridiculous. They're just mad that we exposed their lies and their deceit, but they unleashed COVID on the world. We sued them and we won, and so this is just sour grapes They've sued me for $50 billion, but I won't be apologizing anytime soon, as you'd imagine.
The lawsuit was filed by authorities in Wuhan and Chinese research bodies. It accuses Schmidt and Missouri officials of damaging China's reputation through what it calls malicious litigation. Schmidt rejects the claims, calling the case baseless lawfare meant to distract from China's pandemic response. The move follows a U.S. court judgment earlier this year awarding Missouri $24 billion in its case against China. Shenyang Performing Arts is officially launching its 2026 global tour with Europe as its first stop. More news after this break.
I had a pretty normal mom life. Everything was pretty good, and it was a very happy life.
And we just had a new baby. And then all of a sudden, within a day or two, she's on life support and fighting for her life.
And I knew something was pretty wrong. A little less than a week after I came home, I couldn't breathe. That's when we decided to go to the hospital. I was given the diagnosis that I had peripartum cardiomyopathy, which is basically a pregnancy-induced heart failure. They told me my only chance was a heart transplant.
And the American Heart Association helped make that possible. Their research helped save me.
This could not happen without monthly donations from friends like you. Your sustained support helps fund life-saving research that leads to medical breakthroughs, like those that gave Jen a second chance at life. Heart disease is the #1 killer in America, and we urgently need your help to save lives. Go to helpheart.org or call now to become a monthly donor today. Your donation of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, will make a difference through prevention, early detection, treatments, and cures that help save lives.
I am very thankful for the American Heart Association. I'm grateful for just every day that I get with my children.
Please go to helpheart.org or call now with your donation of just $19 a month. Join our community of monthly donors, and you'll get this limited edition t-shirt you can wear to show you're helping save lives.
One simple act today can save your life or the life of a loved one.
So please, call or go to helpheart.org now to help save lives.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
(911), where's your emergency?
And just moments ago, President Trump witnessed the dignified transfer of 2 Iowa National Guard members killed in an attack in Syria. Let's take a look at that. Now, President Trump, as you can see, was at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware for this solemn ritual. And 2 Iowa National Guardsmen and a civilian interpreter as well were killed in Syria on Saturday in an apparent ambush. So, a bit more details on the attack. The attacker targeted a convoy of American and Syrian forces in a central Syrian town. And now the names of the 2 National Guard members are Sergeant Edgar Brian Torres Tovar. He was 25 years old, of Des Moines. And the other person was Sergeant William Nathaniel Howard, and he was just 29 years old, of Marshalltown, and both of them served in the 1st Squadron, 113th Cavalry Regiment. So now there is no formal role for the president at a dignified transfer, other than just to watch in silence, and there is no speaking by any of the dignitaries who attend, with the only words coming from military officials who direct the highly choreographed transfers. Now, as you can see, President Trump is saluting there with the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. Now, Trump did not arrive with First Lady Melania Trump. He came alone. And her office didn't give a reason why as to she was not able to attend. And the Iowa National Guard members are hailed as heroes, of course. And just some statements here. Howard's stepfather, Jeffrey Bunn, has said, I'm just reading this quote from the father, Howard loved what he was doing and would be the first in and last out. He said Howard had wanted to be a soldier since he was a boy. And in a social media post, Bunn, who is chief of the Tampa, Iowa Police Department, said Howard was a loving husband and an amazing man of faith. He said Howard's brother, a staff sergeant in the Iowa National Guard, would escort Nate back to Iowa. Torres Tovar was remembered as a very positive, family-oriented person. He always put others first, and this is according to fellow Guard members who were deployed with him, and issued a statement to the local TV broadcast station, WOI. Okay, a little bit of information from the interpreter, the civilian interpreter. He was from Iraq, a small Catholic village south of Mosul, and the family immigrated to the U.S. back in 2007 on a special visa. At the time of his death, the interpreter was employed as an independent contractor for Virginia-based Valiant Integrated Services. And the interpreter's family was still struggling to believe that he is gone. They're saying he was a devoted father and a husband and a courageous interpreter and a man who believed deeply in the mission he served. And as you can see now, service members are bringing the casket holding the body of the soldiers out from the plane. Let's just watch for a moment in silence. Okay, now for some reactions from President Trump to the attack in Syria. Trump told reporters over the weekend that he was mourning the deaths, and he did, in fact, vow retaliation. So the most recent instance of U.S. service members killed in action was actually back in January 2024, when 3 American troops died in a drone attack in Jordan. So Saturday's attack followed a rapprochement between the U.S. and Syria, if you remember that, bringing the former pariah state into a U.S.-led coalition fighting the Islamic State group. And we've seen President Trump forging a relationship with interim Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara. And he did invite him to the White House as well last month. Trump said on Monday that the attack had nothing to do with the Syrian leader, who Trump also said was devastated by by what happened. So the second casket is being brought out from the plane, and the reason why there is no sound, because there's no speaking by any of the dignitaries who attend. The only words coming from military officials who actually direct the choreographed transfers. This is not a ceremonial event, but a solemn military ritual to honor U.S. service members killed in action. And as you can see, the transfer involves flag-draped transfer cases being carried from the aircraft to waiting vehicles by military teams. So after the transfer, the remains will be taken to the facility at Dover, where identification will be conducted and preparation for a final burial of the bodies. Now, what you're witnessing is President Trump meeting with family members of 2 Iowa National Guard members and a U.S. civilian who were killed in action. The meeting was actually held at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware, where this ritual is being held as we speak right now. So Trump was joining the families and top administration and military officials to watch the dignified transfer of the remains. And as you can see, President Trump at the site right now. And this solemn dignified transfer ritual honors U.S. service members killed in action. Trump, who traveled to Dover several times in his first term, described it as what he says is the toughest thing he had to do as a president. Now, the 2 guardsmen killed in Syria on Saturday were Sergeant Edgar Brian Torres Tovar. He was 25 of Des Moines, and Sergeant William Nathaniel Howard, 29 of Marshalltown. And according to the U.S. Army, both were members of the 1st Squadron, 113th Cavalry Regiment, and have been hailed as heroes by the Iowa National Guard. So both Torres Tovars and Howard's families were at Dover for the return of the remains. And this is alongside the Iowa governor, Kim Reynolds, and members of Iowa's congressional delegation and leaders of the Iowa National Guard. And their remains will be taken to Iowa after the transfer. Okay, the ritual is coming to a close now. Key officials leaving the site. All right, we're going to move on now. Democratic and Republican competing proposals to tackle healthcare are on the way to the Senate, with both expected to fail in the upper chamber. Healthcare will continue to dominate the legislative agenda during the first quarter of 2026. More news after this break.
This is what you've been waiting for. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun. Get tickets now.